Welcome to Hello Kind Soul Podcast, where we raise the vibration of kindness on a global scale. I'm Dr. Ebony Green, your host, and I'm super excited to be with you today. If you want to follow us on all major platforms, look us up at Hello Kind Soul Podcast. And if you want to follow me, look me up at E Green Equity. I hope you enjoy the episode. Have a great day. Welcome to Hello Kind Soul. I'm your host, Dr. Ebony Green. I'm super excited to be in community with you today and to kind of lift up this episode. And I'm going to start with the phrase, wealthy whispers and rich is loud. And what's so wild is that typically when people are referring to that, they're specifically speaking about people and the amount of wealth that they have. But I had this amazing experience last week, which was so wild, and I just feel like it's important to share kind of a part of it, right? When you think about this idea of like wealthy whispers, it's to kind of indicate that people who have a lot of wealth are very like more quiet, more calm, more just like stealth, if you will, right? They don't really look to draw a lot of attention. They don't really look to be loud or to in any way give off that they're better than or whatever, right? And I'm going to assume that's correct. I know from the folks that I've met that have been really wealthy, you can tell it's a different level of like calm and cool and collected behaviors, dispositions. And then rich is like this more brash, loud. I want everybody to know what I got. I want everybody to know how important I am, all the stuff, right? And so when I think about that concept and kind of my experiences last week at this incredible event, it also made me think about, what if we apply this notion of wealthy whispers and rich is loud to the idea that when you walk into a room, when you walk into spaces and you know that your life has a calling on it, y'all, when you know that you are gifted in multiple ways, you tend to act very differently, right? And to me, that also is that parallel to wealthy, right? Like when I'm aware of my power and who I am and how I occupy space and what I'm here to do and the impact that I want to have, I don't necessarily feel the need to be dismissive or disrespectful or demeaning or be really boisterous about my intellect or what I can do, right? Like there's this quiet calm that kind of walks with you because you have a confidence about what you're able to bring into the space. And then conversely, for folks who are rich, right, quote unquote, who may have the title or may have the power, don't necessarily understand or really believe that they're worthy and they're valuable, then they feel the need to kind of project out into the world all that they have, right? How smart they are, their title, their money, right? All the things. And so it makes me really kind of sit and chuckle sometimes because over this past week, I got to meet a version of each of those that I described to you. And it was such a stark contrast because on one hand, there was this person I met who everything about the way they navigate the room, while they're wealthy, it was less about the wealth and it was more about watching how they navigate people and talk and share and just be really kind in their dispositions and the way they showed up in their genuine appreciation for being in community with you. And it was super evident in every conversation that it was a woman. So every conversation she was having, like you could see this like quiet elegance and like strength and passion and promise, right? But it was never on display of like, and I have this and I'm all that. It was just this belief system that you could see was deeply rooted within her, that in every room she walks in, she owns that room, that stage. And when I say own it, I don't mean performs in the sense of like, I'm this person. She's very clear on who she is when she walks in. And so it made me just really think about like the world we're living in right now and where we're kind of going, right? Because the other version I saw was, you know, there are always people who sometimes show up and they're there just kind of making sure the people around them kiss the ring. Or, you know, their exchange or conversation with you, it feels yucky, like it hits you in your belly and you're like, or they talk in ways to other people that makes your heart drop because then you may have to encounter them and you just would rather not. And so when I thought about those two parallels, if you will, it was just so wild to realize that oftentimes in the world that we live in, you encounter those two people. And there's a bunch of other varieties of folks, obviously, but like those two containers, one of literal peace. And regardless of who she was and what she was doing, and let me be really clear, the person I met was literally a legend. Like, she is a GOAT, like the greatest of all time in certain respects with regard to what her achievements are. And the other people, particularly this one person I'm thinking about, is also very, very well known for what they create or who they are. And essentially, I realize that oftentimes we have these opportunities to engage with multiple people, and sometimes the way we show up and the way they show up, we're able to like learn a lot. And so that's what I really took away from the experience, is that some of the people I met, you always wonder, like, man, like, what leads you? And I want to put out there as a possibility or suggestion is to really think about and sit in like what leads me. Like when I enter a room and I talk to people and I engage, what are they seeing first? What are they feeling first? It's something that I really, really try to be really intentional about. There's times I fail, y'all. Like there are times that I'm not grounded because of I'm busy or whatever the thing is. And so in those moments, I tend to be more quiet because I know that I'm not necessarily showing up as my full best self. But it's to be really mindful of like sometimes sitting and considering like when I walk in a room and I engage with someone, what are they going to take away from that interaction? That's good. That's wholesome. That's kind. That's caring, right? Regardless of the conversation, right? Even hard conversations can be had, and I've said this before, in a really kind, gentle, compassionate way, and still have really clear boundaries around what has to get accomplished. I say all this to say, and it leads me to thinking about kind of this next point to make is how do you wield power? There are a lot of people who will get an opportunity in their lifetime in this world to wield a lot of power, and I don't mean power in the traditional sense of the big fancy title, right? Because there are people who don't necessarily have big fancy titles, but hold a lot of power, whether it's within their community, whether it's within their family, whether it is at their job, right? And so I want us to think about and consider, how do you be a good steward of wielding power, right? So that we know we're not harming people in that process. When you're looking at folks who have a lot of power, what they do with it is really, really critical and very much telling to who they are. And then the other question or thought I have is, who were you prior to getting that power, right? Sometimes you have folks who were really kind and nurturing and just good folks, right? And then they gain some power and they gain some status and they gain some title, and you start to see them leave slowly but surely. And I've had that happen several times, over the course of my lifetime. And it is like a deep sadness that usually comes to me because you're watching them lose themselves in the delusion of power and wealth and acclaim, right? And I only can imagine that happens when you're genuinely not grounded in who you are, right? Because the wealthy person, right, knows who they are. And wealth is not just an indicator of money. Wealth is your abundance, how you live well, how you thrive, how you seek joy, how you pour into others, how you impact the world for good. All of that is on offer. And so when you know who you are, the more power you get, the more change you can create, the more love you can share, the more you can fill up people's cups, right? The more that you shine your light in a way that lights the paths of others who might be in darkness. But when you don't figure out what you're doing on the way there, sometimes you get there. And then to me, I'm saying it metaphorically, you're rich. Right? You're the person who has the stuff, has the title, has the thing, but has lost your way. And there's a biblical phrase, something like, for what is it for you to inherit the world, but to lose your soul? Something like that. I'm not saying it correctly, but you know what I mean. And so to get all these things, to gain your seat at the table, to shoot, even if you build a table and then you get there, and while there, you lose your soul for what? Like what is the goal? If you can amass wealth, power, titles, all this opportunity, which is what I see it as. Like my goal, the goal at Hello Kind Soul is the more we get, the more we can give, right? But what pleasure is it to gain all of these things and then not figure out how to give back in a way that positively impacts others, right? And so that's just the two things that really came up to mind. And then the other thing that I noticed about this particular person is that everywhere she went, she almost transformed the room with her energy. Like, I don't even know if she's aware how much she transforms rooms with her energy. And I think because every day I wake up, I really consider this interaction again and again and again, because it was so profound in that, sometimes you get to meet people in these accidental, very divine meetings, and they're meant to exchange something. And so it made me wonder, like, I wonder if she even knows how much her energy literally walks in before her and kind of transforms the room. And I can only imagine that the reason she's able to do that is because at her core, her heart space has been really, really fortified, right? With love and joy and peace and hope and impact. And I don't think that happens by accident, right? And so at some point I had an episode, we talked about like your heart space. Like, how do you guard your heart space? How do you make sure that no matter what's happening, like you're still good, right? Because when we go through situations, you come out two ways, bitter or better. That's it. And so I can only imagine someone who is that successful, is that wealthy, has been through some stuff, y'all. Like, I know for many of us, we don't really have a lot, or we're in the struggle of building the thing or getting the title. It's hard. And I think sometimes we don't realize the other side of it. Like, well, when you get it, it's just harder. Like, great, you got it. Now it's harder. And to really sit with that. And so I can only imagine there are more people pulling on you, asking for help, asking questions, needing support, all the things. And so in that process, it's to figure out, well, what do I need so I'm good in this, right? Because in order to serve the world genuinely, right? Not performatively, but genuinely, there are some times where you have to really spend time trying to figure out what is it that you need. And in that moment and in that season. And so for those of you out there who have these roles in life that you're doing a lot to help people and serve the world and whatever area you're in, I want you to take some time to think about consistently, what do I need? And what do I need in this season? Because I will say it changes, right? There are some seasons where I needed like a lot of solitude and time to reflect and kind of sit in who I was becoming and where I was going. And then there's some seasons that I would have been sad if I didn't have a ton of community around me, because in that season, I needed people to really engage with and just sit in joy with and laugh and build with, right? But the one thing I never stop asking myself is, what do I need? And I think I do that because for me in this moment, I realize I don't ever want to be the rich person, ever. I want to be the wealthy person, right? I want to be the person that continues to create, expand, add value, and never take it away. And I think the reason the rich person in my mind, like that metaphorical character, the person who's just kind of loud or dismissive or arrogant in just multiple ways, is that that's not sustainable. Because you can continue to have the things you have, but at some point you're going to turn around. You're going to turn around. And when you do, and you go back to the mirror and you look at it, you're going to be really sad at the cost of that. And the cost of it isn't always just like maybe not getting the next job or whatever. Sometimes the cost is people who really matter to you. Sometimes the cost is your peace. Sometimes the cost is your health. Sometimes the cost is realizing how much you've lost in the process of that delusion, that somehow you had to stay that way or be that way or become that thing that is really actually just toxic. And so in order to stay wealthy, right, in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit, and even in your bank account, right, I think there's a process of really thinking about, like, who am I becoming and what do I need to keep me grounded? And for some people, the grounding part is like, I need people who will tell the truth to me when I'm going astray. Like, there's never a moment, like, there are people who tell me stuff that, I don't want to hear it. I'm sure you don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I'm not really, I don't want to hear it. But without those people, where am I going, y'all? Like, where are you going? Like, then you become the emperor with no clothes. And you running around. If you don't know the reference, go read the book, The Emperor with No Clothes. You're running around doing all these things, thinking you amazing, and you're a fool. Period. And I'm not saying this because I'm not bringing this up for any particular reason. But in this moment, in that stark contrast and that experience I had was like these two experiences that to me really reminded me of what happens when you are lost and when you are found. And when you're found, man, like you just see the light emanating from people. Like they're walking in their greatness. They're walking in their purpose. They're proud of who they become. They're proud of what they do. They're proud of what they do for the world. Right? Like that's the thing. Like, and then there are folks that are not. And you can say, you know, as you walk through the world, like, this is who I want to become. I'm just saying that there is a ton of times where people go astray. I'm sure there's more than one time I went astray. I know that for sure. But then there was this opportunity to like see that you were on the wrong road and turn back. And here is the problem, y'all. Here's the hardest part for people, I think for everybody. When you end up realizing you've gone astray, then you have two options. It's to correct the course or double down on the ignorance. And I want to believe that when people double down on the ignorance, it's actually because it's really hard to say, I messed up. It's really hard to own and be accountable to the mistakes you've made, to transition from one person to another person, and in the process lose the very things that brought joy to you about yourself and to others. And so for some people, it's not that they can't see that they've gone astray. It's not that they can't see that they're acting in a rich way in the ways that they're treating people. It's that at this point in their mind, if they were to turn around and say like, man, I don't like who I'm becoming, then they think judgment kicks in and everybody around them is going to judge them. And what they fail to recognize is like everybody around you is going to be really grateful that you, that you see what your potential is, that you see the value you can bring to the world, that you see how amazing of a human being you are. And that no one's going to care, essentially, that you've made all these mistakes. And yes, you may have to atone for the mistakes you make, but at the end of the day, people who love you, and they want you to win. Real people want you to win, even when you make mistakes. Like, for those of you who have kids, you know what I'm saying. There's times your kids do stuff and you're just like, man, I don't know why. Like you get mad. And it's more because you want them to win. And in experiencing those people, what made me so like, what took me back was like, wow, I can see how these dispositions, the way you are, the way you genuinely listen, the way you genuinely outwardly seem to care about people, how those behaviors and dispositions will get you really far in this world. And I also realized that there are times that for me in that moment, I realized that there were a lot of characteristics that I attribute to certain people that may not be true. Because at the end of the day, people are still people. Everyone hurts deeply. People cry from their belly, no matter what they got. People experience deep sadness, right? People of all walks of life want to have a good, joyous life. And that I think the most important thing for me is the more that you know who you are and what you need in this season, you can live your wealthy life, the way that you show up and step into your shoes and step into your purpose and love people deeply, even when you have discernment, right? Even when you run into people that you're just like, they're not for me. It's not about not liking them. Right? There's no judgment even attached to it. It's actually my spirit in this moment told me that I'm not supposed to hang out with your spirit. Like that's the 2-year-old like explanation, right? Like my spirit says I can't hang out with your spirit in this moment, but maybe if I meet you in a month or a year, we'll be good. But it's to understand that in those moments that vibration is not, the frequency is not aligned. And you don't judge it. You just, okay, cool. Keep it moving. But I would also say one other thing before we wrap up is that in order to keep a wealthy mindset, heart, all of the things, is to make sure that you're around people who are good people. Like, I will never understand people who are good people or say they're good people and they're around people who are not good people. Like, I will never understand that. Like, and I won't believe you either, right? Like, you can't say, I'm a good person, but then you're around mean people. that means that part of them is you, like birds of a feather flock together. So if you want to maintain that disposition of kindness and caring and compassion and empathy and really level up and own your confidence, and I'm not saying be arrogant, but knowing what you bring to the table, it's to make sure that the folks around you share many of those dispositions. We could be very different people. I could be type A, you could be type B, whatever, but we still can have these core values that align, right? That we are kind to people, we are nice to people. And even when we have hard conversations, we have those conversations rooted in love and not judgment. And that we're not looking at people that because you have the title or the power or whatever, the wealth, that you're somehow better than a bunch of other people. We're all the same people, right? We're all humans trying to do different things to make the world better from our vantage point. And that's what we should honor. That's what we should value. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I might be that rich person that's a little bit loud, or you might be saying, I'm that wealthy person that whispers, then the question is, what do you need to continue doing to be the person who whispers if you have a wealthy heart, mind, spirit? And if you're a person that says, wow, maybe I'm rich because I'm, some way being disrespectful when I talk to people or inadvertently demeaning or dismissive or whatever, then what are you willing to do to change it? Because none of us are static people. All of us get an opportunity to change, to grow and evolve every day. So there's no judgment if you find yourself listening and there's dis-ease in your spirit because you're like, I got some work to do. Cool, do it. Because the whole purpose of this podcast is for us to talk and think about and consider things that aren't always fun to consider. But the goal is that consideration may trigger something in you or be the catalyst for you to move in a very different direction. So I'm just grateful that you take time to tune into us and listen to us, and then have your own conversation about the concepts or thoughts that are presented and see what applies. If it doesn't apply, throw it away. But until next time, folks, I hope you have an amazing day, kind soul. Don't let anyone take the J out your joy. And remember, if you're looking for a way to support us, you can buy us a cup of coffee. Our links are in our YouTube and on the IG. You can give us anything from 50 cents to $5 million or more, whatever you want. So have a great day, kind soul. I'll see you next week. Take care. Peace.